But that aside, I know many people around here have been sick and it's going around. Well, we were very generous in our family because I got sick. Then my son Isaiah got sick on Christmas Eve and Christmas. Then I gave it to Paige. And then Paige gave it to my brother and his fiance. And then also gave it to my other brother and my mom. And then when my dad had flown home, he got it. And then after that, because my in-laws were in on Monday, my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law got it, and then eventually my father-in-law got it. So we had 10 people that just joined our house for 24 hours, and they all got sick. So if you're scared of me, yeah, I won't take it personally if you want to take off, You can watch the sermon on YouTube. Yeah. So we're very generous in sharing in our family, but I've never quite seen anything like that where it just spreads so quickly after being kind of over with for over a week. But that's not good. Anyways, that was our Christmas. It was a great time. I hope you guys had a great Christmas. Celebrating New Year's today. I knew a lot of people would be traveling. We'd have a lot of people gone or, gearing up for whatever they're doing tonight. But I just wanted to kind of talk about some things that I've been thinking about, start of a new year. I really like to, when we come to this point in our year with church, I like to spend one Sunday to just really almost reflect more than talk about things moving forward, and then next week talk a little bit more of moving forward, because I think it's really important to be able to spend time and reflect, to look back, to learn, and we're going to do a little bit of that, and we're also going to talk about starting fresh, having a new beginning, being able to just say, hey, it's now no longer 2017, it's 2018. God's got great things in store. God's going to work through you. God's going to work through your family. God's going to work through our church. God's going to work in our community. And I think the better we reflect and can kind of observe things that have happened over the last year, the better that we can look forward and be excited about things to come. And today, as we kind of think about some of these things, we're going to turn in our Bibles to, I won't go there quite yet, but the book of Genesis, and look at the story of a man named Jacob, and just how a fresh start is possible. A fresh start is possible. And for many times of the year, New Year's is an opportunity to start fresh, to fix what is bad, and continue what is good. And I think only when we reflect and really just allow ourselves to take a minute to let sink in the last year, can we properly analyze what is good, what good did happen over the last year, and what maybe wasn't so good. And what I think is important for us to know is that every year, I'm not advocating for making crazy, outlandish resolutions. The Facebook and all these places are flooded with memes and all these things now. And, a guy wrote down for his New Year's resolution to get fat, to never work out, and to start smoking. So he wrote those three down, and it's an animated meme. And then it shows in February, the guy's buff, working out, eating healthy, and all this stuff. It's because if you think that you are going to break your New Year's resolution, might as well set a bad New Year's resolution. New Year's resolutions are made to be broken, like the Mayhem commercials that we're seeing. Allstate, they have the Mr. Mayhem, and he's falling through roofs, and Christmas trees falling off and just causing all kinds of insurance nightmares. Well, his New Year's resolution is now to do good, so he's on the road as a road flare. He's getting kids' airplanes off the roof and not getting struck by lightning. But then at the end of the commercial, it says, New Year's resolutions are made to be broken. So I'm not one to stand up here and ever preach or advocate that we should make a bunch of crazy New Year's resolutions, but I think it's important for us to know regularly, often, we should start fresh. We should evaluate and start again. We should reflect and re-energize ourselves to continue moving forward, shedding what is bad and continuing in God's strength for what is good. And any opportunity that comes our way to do that, I think, is a good opportunity to allow God to speak to us, to show us, to teach us, to lead us into what we can do to continue what is good and to stop or cut back and maybe what is not so good. And a good way to do that is just to ask ourselves some questions. What is the single best thing that happened this past year? What is the single best thing that happened this past year? Maybe for you, it was the birth of a baby. That's what it was for me. It was shortly into 2017, January 13th, but maybe something exciting, maybe something that was the single most joyful thing that happened to you this year was a new job, maybe a new house. Maybe it was time spent with your family or a vacation that you took. Maybe it was something that God showed you in your relationship with Him. Maybe God took you to a new place this year that He hadn't in years previous. Something specific that I can think of with that particular one is Tres Dias, and just how God showed me a lot in the Tres Dias retreat that I hadn't learned in years past. Maybe you had an experience like that this year too. Maybe you developed a new close relationship with someone that you hadn't had before, and it just brought you such great joy. Maybe your marriage or your relationship with your kids or your relationship with a friend or a coworker just was taken to a new place that brought you extreme joy that you hadn't experienced in years before. Maybe you learned something new. Maybe you learned a new skill. Maybe you spent the time acquiring a new hobby. Maybe you ventured out and traveled more or read more books, and it just brought you great joy to experience that type of learning. Or maybe something was given to you. Maybe because of a relationship that you had, someone gave you something that just brought you extreme joy. And even now, just seeing this question, within the first couple seconds, that gift is being recalled, because it just brought you such great joy. 2017, I can assure you, if we take a minute to think, there is lots and lots of things that just brought us joy in 2017. What was the most challenging thing that happened in 2017? Maybe some of your great joys were also some of the most challenging, like having a baby, right? Or a relationship, or a new job, or a new house, or time spent with family, or a financial situation. Maybe there are things that you struggle with at work and being content and being happy with the job and position that you have now. Maybe a challenging thing that happened in 2017 was your relationship with God. Maybe you just don't know if this is where you should be, if this is where you want to be, or maybe you do know, and that's part of the challenge, is that you've been struggling with how to take your next step in your relationship with God. Maybe it was a death or a sickness or something that happened with close family members or friends. Maybe it was your circumstances, just something that was totally out of your control. Things around you just aren't going well. The ground is shaky each day, each week seems a little uncertain. And 2017 brought a lot of challenges. Maybe it was school. Maybe you're still in school. Maybe you're still pursuing higher education. Maybe it's your kids' school. Maybe it's your husband or your wife, they're in school, and that's challenging because of the dynamics and being a family and going to work and also having a spouse that's enrolled in school. Maybe school was something that was extremely challenging. As 2017 brought a lot of joy, I'm sure, again, seeing this question within a few seconds, you're probably able to recall several things that were also challenging in 2017. What was an unexpected joy in this past year? Right? Maybe you can recall something where God showed up, or a friend showed up. A time where you thought things weren't going that well, or things were going well and they just got better because of God showing up, or because of a friend showing up, or because God's blessings were just poured out on you and it was totally unexpected. That God showed up, God showed you his love, God showed you his grace, God showed you his mercy, right? Unexpected joys in 2017. I'm sure we can think of a few, and maybe you're jotting a few down right now as these questions are coming up. What was an unexpected obstacle? One of the hardest things to kind of work through, especially if you look back over the last year, was probably things that popped up that made life harder that wasn't expected. You know, we expect things financially, we expect things with our work, we expect things with our kids, and we can kind of handle those as they come and go. But a lot of times the harder ones are ones that we didn't expect, that we weren't prepared for, that we weren't ready for, that we didn't want or think were going to happen. And maybe you think of a few unexpected obstacles that came up in the year 2017 that maybe you felt really challenged by. 2017. We're one day away from 2017 being over, but I can imagine, looking back, you can remember joys. You can remember sorrows. You can remember great excitement. You can remember great relationships. You can remember. And whatever the experiences that you've had over the last year, good, bad, ugly, great, I think it's still a great opportunity coming into the new year to look at what has happened and start fresh. We've had a lot of great things happen over the last year at Cornerstone, and I showed a lot of these pictures and even talked about some of this on our anniversary Sunday back in October, but we had 4 baptisms this year in 2017. Started off with Jalen Morrow, then we had Micah Kramer, then we had Lee Bennett, and Nick Ross, and those are a few pictures. I didn't get a picture of Lee. We had a nice private baptism here on the Saturday before Easter. Great time to get baptized. We had people get baptized. We had people commit their lives to Christ. People say that I'm done following my own ways. I'm going to follow the ways of Jesus. I'm going to not give 80, 90, 95, 99.9% of my life to Jesus. I'm giving it all. And I know, talking with some of you, that there are people that are thinking about getting baptized in 2018. People who got baptized in 2017, people who will get baptized in 2018. A great joy, something that we celebrated and experienced together as a body of believers in 2017. So we had baptisms. We also had a lot of great events. We had, kind of going back, we had in July, General Conference, where churches who are associated with us all over the United States, and some people even came from outside of the United States to come to Cornerstone Bible Church and handle the General Conference's business, to worship together, to study together, to rally around the truths that we hold dearly, that we identify with, that is unique to us. We have people come from all over and worship and share a lot of food together and spend time learning, teaching, and just getting to know and see how people are worshiping the same God all over the country. We had the Boy Scouts who use our facility every summer. They come in and they use the facility, the Family Life Center, and I was here that week and they just had tons of Boy Scouts running all over. And it's just a great event because it's Cornerstone partnering with people in our community to show them that we care. And they do a lot of awesome things: archery, BB guns, slingshots. They got bouncy houses all over the place. They go hike in our woods and clear off trails. We had a lot of awesome events. We've had 2 Trace Diaz events that many people at Cornerstone have participated in, one in March, one in October. We've had our Easter service where we serve breakfast over here, and we just celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Cornerstone has been blessed with so many people who made all of these events happen, who came and participated in them in 2017. From someone who can come and see things from a different perspective than maybe you guys see, I've been blessed, and I've seen people been blessed because of our ministry and the events that we've held here at Cornerstone Bible Church. And that's just getting started. We didn't even talk about the ministries yet. Our softball team, who's won 2 championships. We got 2 trophies up in my office. If you can go and look, but they're awesome, sitting on the bookshelves. The CBC kids and all the great stuff that Lynn and all of the ministry volunteers are doing in the Family Life Center with Children's Church, with getting volunteers going and greeters. I recently, over the last several months, have been taking inventory of all the different ministries that we have and getting some teams together and getting some more people involved in ministry. And to do that, I wrote out each ministry and all the volunteers that were in each ministry. And there's the worship team, there's the greeter team that's established, the guest services team, we have the groups, we have, people involved in the finances, and I'm writing them all down. And then I get to the CBC kids, and it's like, a page and a half of people volunteering with our kids. And that's just one of the greatest things that people of our church celebrate, that they honor, that they know how important it is to pour into the upcoming generation of leaders, of followers of Jesus. At the bottom left, you see one of our life group meetings. That's where we, just like I said, sit around and eat Mexican. It's a great time to just talk, chit-chat, see how everybody's doing. And on the bottom right, we had our baby dedication back in April. We've had a lot of babies being born in the last 2 years or so, and I've joked about how that's our new growth strategy, is we just need to start encouraging people to have families and make more babies so that we can grow as a church. I'll be a part of it, I already have. So we've had lots of great ministries of things that have happened around here at CBC that I'm excited for where God is going to take us in 2018. Because the new year is a chance to start fresh. The new year is a chance to reflect, see what good God has brought to us, what good God has worked through us, and to see where God do you want to take us in the next year. And maybe you're sitting here thinking, do I need to start fresh? I feel like things are going pretty well. Do I need to start fresh? Do I need to reevaluate? Do I need to review or reconnect? And I would say one of the best things that you can do, even when things are going well, is to learn to continue to regularly start fresh. One of the famous pastors always says, if you can't figure out why things are going well when they're going well, you're not going to be able to figure out how to make things go well when they're not going well. And whether you've had a rough year, you can't think of many joys in 2017. You can't think of many good relationships or opportunities. All you think of is challenges and hard work and sorrow and things not going the way that you wanted them to, and unexpected obstacles that popped up left and right. You need to start fresh. We need to start fresh. Maybe your year was full of joy. Maybe it was full of exciting things. Maybe it was full of just one thing after another that you can just reflect and say, this was awesome, this was awesome, this was perfect. Even you need to start fresh, because God doesn't want to stop working in you today or tomorrow. God wants to continually make you new, offer you new beginnings, offer you new paths, offer you new blessings. He continually wants to work in you and through you. Our vision statement here at Cornerstone is we believe that CBC exists to lead and empower people to follow Jesus closer, one step at a time. We believe that for a reason, because until you no longer live, God is still working in you and through you, which makes the New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, not necessarily a chance to write down a bunch of resolutions, but to re-accept, re-evaluate, and start fresh in the new year. So we're going to take a bird's eye view. If you would turn with me to Genesis chapter 27. This may be a story that you've heard before. We're not going to read all these chapters. We're just going to, like I said, kind of take a big picture view of the story of Jacob. But this is one of the coolest stories of a relationship that started fresh, that had a new beginning. And I can imagine that when we think about the joys and the sorrows and the unexpected obstacles of this past year, that 99% of them probably involved a relationship with somebody else, with your family, with a significant other, with somebody at church. And when we look at the story of Jacob, and we're going to look at the story of Jacob and Esau, and we're going to kind of get a little bit of background information, this was a relationship where people chose not to start fresh, not to offer a new beginning, but where there was a long period of waiting, where there was a long period of dissonance, of anger, of unforgiveness. And it was only when they allowed God to work, and almost where circumstances brought the two brothers back together, that a new beginning, a fresh start occurred. And we're going to look at this story almost for one of the biggest reasons to show us, don't wait. Don't wait to start fresh. Every opportunity that comes your way to start fresh, to rejuvenate, to reflect, to make new goals, to allow God to work and dream things in and through you, don't wait for the new beginning. Seek it out. And what better time of year to do that than a New Year's Day? So we're going to look at Genesis 27 through 33. I'm going to give you a little background here. Abraham is looked at as one of the greatest people in Scripture. His story starts off in Genesis 22. And many of you may not know, but we're a Cornerstone Bible Church, but we're associated with the Church of God General Conference, which is just other churches throughout the country. But we're also named, one of the names that floats around about us is we're the Church of God of Abrahamic Faith. So our association of churches is kind of named and really purposed on the faith of a man named Abraham. So Abraham was Isaac's father. So Abraham, a great man of faith who kind of God's first promise came to after Adam and Eve, who everybody reflects back on the promise made to Abraham. That promise was passed down on to Abraham's son, whose name was Isaac. Now, Isaac has a story, and we're not going to look at that story, but Isaac then had two sons with his wife, Rebekah. So Isaac and Rebekah were married. Rebekah had two sons, Esau and Jacob. Esau and Jacob were twins. And it even talks about in the birth story of Esau and Jacob that Esau and Jacob were wrestling in the womb. And Rebekah felt as the twins were growing inside of her that two nations were wrestling around. And then at the birth of Esau and Jacob, Esau was born first, and it says that he was red and hairy, which is why they named him Esau. And then Jacob came out after Esau, grabbing Esau's heel, grabbing to try to get out first, but Esau was the firstborn, and Jacob was the secondborn. So, setting up the story, we have Abraham, Isaac, Esau, and Jacob. The stories about Esau and Jacob. And this part of the story, we're going to start in Genesis chapter 27. It's kind of cool. I call it the deception. We see in Genesis chapter 22 or 27, the story of the deception. This is what it says. When Isaac was old, this is 27 verse 1, when Isaac was old, and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called for Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son, here I am," he answered. Isaac said, "I am now an old man, and I don't know the day of my death." Verse 3, "Now then, get your equipment, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare me the kind of tasty food I like, and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my blessing before I die." So something that was very cultural in those days was that the oldest son got a bigger, better blessing than the other children. So Esau, being the older son, comes to Isaac because Isaac is old, his eyes are weak, he could barely see, he thinks that he is on his deathbed. He calls in his oldest son Esau and says, come here, I'm going to give you my blessing, but before I do that, go do what you do best, which is take your quiver and your bow, go out and hunt, catch and kill some wild game for me and cook it the way I like as a last meal type of thing before I bless you. So this is what happens. We're not going to read this because it's 2 chapters long, but let me tell you the craziness that happens and why we call it the deception. Because Esau and Jacob were brothers. They were constantly fighting, constantly wanting that birthright of the oldest son. So while Esau is out hunting, and I hunt with a bow. I use a compound bow. It's really easy. I just go sit in a tree and wait for a deer to come. I can't imagine what it was like in those days where you have a stick and a leather strap, and you got to have lots of bows or arrows in your quiver because you never know what you're going to be able to find. And he's out there hunting for a long time. And Rebekah, Isaac's wife, goes to Jacob and says, hey, Jacob, come here, quick. Rebekah had Jacob as her favorite child, where Isaac liked Esau as their favorite child. So we even have stories in the Bible about parents picking favorites. If you don't believe that actually happens, we have a story here in the Bible about it happening, because Rebekah goes to Jacob and she says, Jacob, your father is about to give his blessing to Esau. Go kill a ram and bring it to me, and we'll trick him. We'll trick him because he can't see. He's getting old and a little senile. He won't know who he's blessing if we trick him well enough. So she calls Jacob to go get one of the rams in their flock. She cooks it the way that Isaac likes it. Then they take the skin of the goat, because it says that Jacob was a kind of fair-skinned, soft-skinned. He didn't go out and hunt. He didn't go out and do things in the woods. He didn't go do things out in the fields. So they took the goat skin from the goat that they killed and put it on Jacob's arms, put it on Jacob's neck, and then Jacob took the goat that was killed to Isaac, said, bless me, Father. Isaac eats it and says it's so good. He's wearing Esau's clothes. Isaac requests that Jacob kiss him before he gives the blessing. So Jacob leans in, smelling like Esau, got goat hair on him, so he feels like Esau, and Isaac blesses Jacob instead of Esau. Jacob deceives his father, Isaac, into receiving all of his inheritance, the land, the wine, the goats, the plants, the flocks. He deceives them into receiving everything that his older brother Esau was supposed to receive. Do you think Esau was very happy about that? Probably not. And we'll see, definitely not, because Esau has been hunting all day. Esau comes back and he asks his father to bless him, and Isaac just immediately begins to weep, wondering, what's going on? I thought I already blessed you. And they realize that Rebekah and Jacob had conspired against them and that they had been deceived. And what do you think Esau wanted to do? Verse 41 said, Esau held a grudge against Jacob, his twin brother, because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, the days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. He's pretty angry. And he probably rightfully should be so with what was done to him. And this story takes place over many years as we look forward. But Jacob did something that was wrong. Rebekah did something that was wrong. Esau had something done to him that was wrong. Isaac had something done to him that was wrong. And I can imagine, thinking about my year, that I can relate to both sides and multiple characters in this story. That there were times over the last year where I had something done to me that was wrong, that I was very angry, that I was very upset, and it made me feel hurt and sad, and I did not know what to do with myself because I had lost something because of what somebody else had done. At the same time, I can think over the last year and think about where I did something that I shouldn't have done, where I took something for somebody else, where I hurt somebody else by my words or my actions, where what I did caused a rift in a relationship. And we're going to look at the story, what happens when we don't learn to start fresh, when we don't learn to grow and work through some of those things, which is why we get to the next point in the story, which I like to call the waiting. And as we look at what happens in this part of the story, we see that good outcomes rarely come when we run from our problems. Which is why starting fresh every January is a great idea. Because when we do things, when things have been done to us, when we don't reflect, when we don't learn to start fresh, good, bad, ugly, great, when we don't learn to start fresh and face on our problems that are going on around us, that are going around with people around us, if we run from our problems, I promise you, very rarely will something good come out of running from our problems, from our feelings, from our hurt, from our anger, and that is just what happens in the couple of chapters after Genesis 27 when Jacob and Esau were fighting and Esau wanted to kill Jacob. Because what Jacob does is Rebekah says, Jacob, your brother, he wants to kill you. You should probably flee and go to my brother Laban's place. So Jacob flees. He goes all the way to a foreign land for Rebekah's brother Laban. Then Jacob has a perfect life. No. Then Jacob faces lots of more problems, and I believe part of that might be because of him running from problems that he was experiencing. Jacob worked for Laban for 7 years in exchange for the daughter of Laban, which he loved, which was Rachel. But then guess what? After 7 years of working, Jacob worked and worked and worked because he wanted to marry Rachel. Laban tricked Jacob, and he married Leah. I don't know how that happens. You can read it for yourself and see that he accidentally sleeps with the wrong sister because Laban tricked Jacob. But like I said, I don't know how that happens. So then what does Jacob do? He is then forced to work another 7 years before he can marry the sister that he actually loved, which was Rachel. Then he's got 2 wives, which it was very common culturally in those times, but it's not very common culturally now, I believe, because the men died off. I think they all realized that it was very stupid to have more than one wife for multiple reasons. So Jacob now has 2 wives, and the wives start fighting. They start arguing. They argue over who's going to have more babies and who should have the most important babies and the oldest babies, and it continued to where Laban then hated Jacob. So Jacob is now forced to flee Laban's place, again, with a huge family, and he flees and ends up going back home. And that's because at some point, no matter what we face, no matter what we've reflected on, good, bad, ugly, great over the last year, we will be forced into or given an option to keep running or to face God and start fresh. And I promise you, God wants to work in you to start fresh. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be necessarily what you want to do, but God will show up in your relationships, in your hurt, in your grief, in the bad decisions that you have made, in the bad decisions that other people have made that have so terribly affected you. God wants to show up so that you can start fresh. But it starts by facing God, not running from the things that are around us. So here we are. If you want to read with me, I have it on the screen, but this is what we call the return. There has been the waiting. More than 14 years of a rift between Jacob and Esau, where they have not spoken. These are twin brothers. These are men who are sons of Isaac, who is the son of the great Abraham, and they have not spoken in over 14 years. They have decided to not start fresh. They have decided to run from God. They have decided to not mend the relationship. So Jacob is on his way back, and he is a little scared, because last time he saw his brother, his brother wanted to kill him. So Jacob sends ahead a messenger, and the messenger says to Esau, hey, we got some gifts for you from your servant Jacob, trying to schmooze him a little bit. And this is what Esau sends the messenger back, which is not what you would want to see. When the messenger returned to Jacob, they said, we went to your brother Esau, and now he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him. He just wants to have a big party, right? That's not what I would think. When I send a messenger that I'm looking for peace, that I'm looking for restoration, and the guy comes back with his gang or posse or whatever you want to call it, and they're all men, so they're not going to have a party. They're probably coming to kill you and all your people. That's what I would think. Jacob sends a messenger, then Esau gets all his men together, probably with swords of some sort, and that's all the messenger said. That's all we have that the messenger said. It's not looking good. So Esau comes, Jacob comes, and we see something that is of great encouragement, that shows us God's favor, that shows us joy, that shows us why it's important to not wait in starting fresh. Because we see in Genesis 33, 1 through 5, the meeting of Jacob and Esau, and look what happens. A fresh start. I didn't put this one on the screen, so if you would read it with me, Genesis chapter 33, verses 1 through 5, it says, Jacob looked up, and there was Esau, coming with his 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the two maidservants. He put the maidservants and their children in front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph in the rear. He himself went on ahead and bowed down to the ground 7 times as he approached his brother. So Jacob put all his servants in the front, just in case the men were coming to slaughter them. He put his family and his most beloved family at the very back. And Jacob went in front of everybody and just bowed down, essentially pleading for mercy, almost saying, if you are going to take something from me, just take my life. Don't take any of these innocent people's lives. And this is what happened. But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arm around his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Then Esau looked up and saw the women and the children. Who are these